on Monday, I know it is Monday. What is it? Wednesday, December 17th, 2025. Oh, boy.
We're close.
It was a day of the week.
Days off.
It is on a little before 11 o'clock, and we are going to talk about some budget adjustment context and information, and also talk about the budget letter that we sent to the agencies for what we're expecting in their presentation this coming year, which is quite different than what we've been getting, and also talk about the budget workshops that we're going to be doing. So I'm going to turn it over to Emily.
Great. Thank you for having me. For the record, Emily Byrne from the Joint Fiscal Office. Do you want me to start with any one of those in particular? I'm happy to.
Why don't we do budget adjustment stuff first, and maybe start with a reminder for everybody in the viewing audience, what about BAA and whatever. Yeah.
So BAA, Budget Adjustment Act, even though there's no act yet, there will be when all is said and done,
Maybe.
in theory.
Yeah, we have two left over from last year. We don't like this year's.
A year ago, I wouldn't have said in theory, but we live in interesting times. So yeah, so the Budget Adjustment Act, usually presented by the Commissioner of Finance early January, sometimes in December if we're lucky. And just as an opportunity to, the Finance and Management starts building the current year budget 10 months before it's even implemented, right? So they're making a lot of assumptions, using a lot of estimates when they do it. When they get, a couple months into the budget that actually gets passed by the legislature, things have changed. Maybe there's new information about federal programs that are changing, or things are going on in the economy and they need to adjust the budget accordingly. So that's what the budget adjustment is. It's just a chance to revisit things like Medicaid caseload or other technical issues that have come up since the budget was passed by the General Assembly. So it's usually just an opportunity to make technical changes, not to implement new policy or start new programs.
Dollars, because we know more than we need.
String up the program, exactly. I haven't spent a lot of time with what was presented yesterday. It's what we'll do in the next couple of weeks, but the one of the things that's important to note about what was presented yesterday is that there is a significant, I would say, amount of available funding to be utilized in the budget adjustment, as was presented yesterday by the commissioner. So we did a quick sort of look at that. So I'm going to share this just because I think it's an important thing for you all to look at, which I forgot to tell you. I might need to share things. Is it in the calendar invite by any chance?
No, email you, right? Okay, thank you.
But one thing, so the first sort of thing in the budget adjustment process that we look at is what changed from the forecast that is updated in July versus what was adopted in January. So the budget that you built was based on the January revenue assumptions. Then in July, you get a new number. If that number is decreased, it goes down, there's less revenue available. Depending on the magnitude of the revenue downgrade is when we go into a rescission process. So that's what we saw with the transportation fund this summer, where there was a revenue downgrade of $7.5 million. The way that the language is written is that if the revenue downgrade is less than 2%, then the administration can manage it on their own. If it's more than 2%, then the Joint Fiscal Committee gets involved and has to approve the plan. That $7.5 million downgrade in the transportation fund triggered the Joint Fiscal Committee involvement in the process. And I can't remember what the I want to say it's 5%. Then it's all everybody has to come back and talk about it. So when there's a downgrade, depending on the magnitude, the Joint Fiscal Committee can get involved. When there's an upgrade, that money just sort of sits until the budget adjustment process or until the next budget year. So if I can show you the best place to find this information is in the revenue forecast that Tom Tibet presents to the General Assembly or to the Emergency Board.
And also in the, yes, if you go to the Joint Fiscal Committee too, for the July 31st meeting.
Yeah.
The
Forecast
update is there.
update.
Yes, this Cavet, Rock and Associates, July 2025 economic review and revenue forecast update.
If you go to just share our another where place you can find it on the JFO website. Under revenue and taxes, there's a link to the consensus revenue forecast, so you can go back, however. There's 58 consensus revenue forecasts up there. Then if you go into the July, the most recent one, July 2025, right on page 1 is this chart, which shows the changes from January. So this shows in the general fund for FY 2026, there was $77.2 million of additional general fund revenue forecasted as compared to the adopted budget in May. It also shows, this is the $7.5 million downgrade in transportation, and then this very small downgrade in the education fund. I'll note the education fund doesn't have a rescission process, just the transportation and the general fund. The education fund has the stabilization reserve, which sort of buoys any changes in the revenue forecast. And because the revenue forecast for the education fund is only non-property tax education fund sources. So it's a third of the education fund revenues, and it just gets managed in the next cycle. So it's not.
For property taxes get adjusted.
Yeah,
And you get had to make up for the.
and you
Right.
refill the reserve every year
Right.
if it sort of dips, but it.
Right. Mike, you had a question?
Yeah, and maybe you're going there already, but that was July, right?
Yep.
And did we just get November numbers?
We have November actual performance. We will get another forecast at the end, in the middle of January, before the governor does his budget speech. So it's possible that this 77 number will stay the same. It possibly go up, could go down. But they will, when they adopt a new revenue forecast in January, the 26 forecast will likely change. And then
Are the
You'll have to
November
react to
numbers available online somewhere?
I believe November numbers are available, because I saw it in Vermont Biz a couple days ago. I can forward that article to the committee. It was down in November. The question is whether that was a blip or a trend, and 1 month we can't tell. So the E-Board is going to meet in January for the next revenue forecast update. The governor's budget speech is January 20th, so the E-Board has to meet before then. I don't think we have a date. The governor calls that. But my guess,
being worked on.
I'm sure it's being worked on, and I'm sure it's gonna be the week before sometime. So it could be the 13th, whatever.
But if
That's when we'll know.
there's a downgrade, then the budget adjustment, you'll have to react, the budget adjustment will have to change accordingly. If there's an upgrade, it means that there's more money available, which one of two things can happen. You can either drop it to the bottom line and use it in FY 27, or there may be other needs in FY 26 that you could deploy those funds for.
But if there's a change to the governor's budget for next year, may
Yes.
also be modified from what I was thinking about today, even though we don't know what it is.
Correct. Right, and there was the year, I don't know if you were on, were you there in 2009?
No.
Okay, so appropriations came in and the revenue forecast in 2000, that was the Great Recession time. And the revenue forecast came in that January at somewhere between $100 and $150 million downgrade. So they had to cut the budget adjustment. That's the first thing they had to do, was cut $100 million out of the budget adjustment. So they had a really fun beginning to their. Yeah, yeah, and that was a new biennium. So welcome to the legislature.
So that's, I think the Commissioner Gresham spoke to $120 million of available revenue for the budget adjustment. Of that 120, this is where the first 77.2 comes from. The remaining funds, and we have to dig into them a little bit more, and we'll get you a sheet. Where did I put it? Share it. But there are, one of the sources is, you'll recall that H 91 had a $10 million appropriation in it. The bill was vetoed and then was not taken up for reconsideration. So that $10 million appropriation was unallocated funds for the purposes of the budget adjustment, so is an additional available funding. So 77 or 87 million of the 120. There was also some money on the bottom line as we talk about it. So I think we left. I have to go back and look at what we did. We didn't budget every single dollar that was available, left some just for
Is it
cushion,
like a couple million or
a
something?
couple million. It's about 2.7, I think. It's a combination of what was on the bottom line and also just when things are, when transfers are finalized, like the cannabis transfer and stuff, those numbers can sort of move a little bit. So that's,
Right.
that gets us to, so that 12 plus 77.
Almost 100 million.
Yeah, or 89 million, right? 12 plus 77, yeah. And then, there's also in the budget, originally you had booked about $8 to $10 million of reversions. Now we're gonna go back and look at these reversions and see what they are, but the administration is proposing increasing that number from $8 million to $31 million. So there's an additional about $30 million or $20 million worth of reversions to the general fund from one-time appropriations or from base appropriations that weren't utilized in the prior fiscal year. In the last 24 hours, we haven't had a lot of time to go through each of those appropriations, but we're going to work on, we have the list. Some of them are one-time, some of them are not. We're going to go through the list and look at, what's there, what bills they were in, try to figure out why they weren't spent. The commissioner, part of the budget adjustment is typically, or the budget is typically language that allows the commissioner of finance and management discretion on what to revert from the general fund. And so that by sort of everything carries forward, and then the finance and management and the secretary of administration determine what gets reverted. So they have gone through that process.
That's 20 million.
And that's another 20 million. Yeah.
Say that one again and then Tom's question.
That's another 20 million of the additional, for the reversions of prior year
Right.
appropriations, which we're gonna dig into.
Between 8 and 30, went from 8 to 31 million and you're looking at that, or is that different?
Yeah, we're working on that one.
Yeah.
There's another 2 million. It was 10 million. Sorry. There's a contingent reversion. We'll have a nice spreadsheet that lays it all out and makes it very clear.
Yes.
Come January.
Spreadsheet, that.
Yeah.
And so is any of the contingency that we left, there was a 30 million?
That is untouched at this point, the contingent appropriations that were made at year end.
Okay.
I can do a quick walkthrough of what those are.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That was my question.
Okay, good.
So then in addition, he referred to another $9 million of other. I haven't dug into what the other is, but again, we will come back with what that is. So assuming finance and management's assumptions and what they've put together, if we agree with what they put together, that's how you get to the additional $120 million. You take the $120 million, the budget adjustment itself is about $50 million. So 120 less that leaves you with the approximately $70 million, $75 million that the governor is proposing to hold for property tax relief next year.
I'm not getting the math of that. We had 120 million.
I'm doing that on the
Using,
fly, I shouldn't.
if we have 120 million and he's using 50 million for this,
70.
that's 70 million. Okay. Right.
Here's GAO.
So it must be 45 or something.
Yeah. When you're back here,
What was the contingent you referenced?
so at the close of FY 2025, there was $118 million that was the contingent appropriations based on where we knew the excess, where it was looking like the revenue was trending in terms of over forecast, right? You can't really appropriate anything over forecast because we only appropriate what's available in the forecast. So we set up the contingent appropriations that if it appears, this is how it gets allocated. The first 8 million went to ADS to deal with their new funding stream. The next 50 million, 118 million. This map I can do on the fly. The next 50 million was appropriated to the Secretary of Administration to be transferred by the emergency board in the event of changes in federal funding circumstances, in terms of federal funding coming through the state. So a little bit of that money was spent by the emergency board. when the government was shut down and the SNAP benefits were not going to be issued by the federal government. We'll have I'm promising a lot of spreadsheets. We'll have a spreadsheet with sort of like where that stands. So that 50 million is less than 50 million at this point. But then there was another $30 million that was set aside specifically for other federal funding challenges that may arise, either in the next fiscal year for the General Assembly to appropriate. And then a second $30 million tranche that was appropriated for federal funds or other issues other needs of the state. So there's sort of two $30 million pots. One is very specific for federal, and the other one is federal and whatever else may be needed in the future. So that's the $118 million that was set aside. That, other than the amount that was allocated by the emergency board, hasn't been unreserved in the Budget Adjustment Act.
Still there,
It's still there, yeah.
can be used for 27.
Mhm.
Right, so what is the process with that in terms of, I mean, I heard the phrase unreserved, $13 million in, that was part of the math from Commissioner or Secretary, or Secretary Gresham? Commissioner Gresham. Or Hardy yesterday was that there's 13 million that it's unreserved that was gonna be.
That was the ed fund, that was the ed.
Right, not the GF.
No.
Okay.
That 13 million you're referring to is a technical issue where we utilized, there's a $13 million reserve in the education fund 2 years ago, I believe, and we utilized it, or you all utilized it to in the education fund construct, but the language was never in it that said specifically like take it out of the reserve and utilize it. It just was sort of part of it. So that language just needs to be somewhere.
So in the process then of contemplating what to do with this $30 million, these two funds that we put aside, I mean, we created special little pockets of money to be used for emergency purposes, to be determined by the joint fiscal committee or whatever, whoever was, or the emergency board.
Yeah, the 230 millions is the General Assembly.
So what's the status of that moving into, who makes a decision about reusing that money if it was meant to be used during off session time, presumably, that was the intent. I understand that it can apply for the whole fiscal year. So what was our intent for that money if we're going into this budgeting season with $50 or $60 million that are reserved for emergency purposes? What's the status of that money and how can it be applied? And, I don't remember what our intent is or what, if there's any tradition with funds like that then get brought back into the budget to be used for other emergencies.
Sure. So I don't know that I can necessarily speak to your intent. I can infer, right, a couple of things that went on and sort of why it was structured the way it was structured. So the first 50 million that was set aside for the emergency board was really in case something happened while the General Assembly was out of session. The emergency board can only move up to 2% of appropriations, which is about 49 point something of prior year appropriations, which is about 49 point something million dollars. So 50 covered. The emergency board couldn't move any more than 50 million. So why give them more money than they can actually move? So that 50 million, that's why that number was 50. The $30 million appropriations, I think were sort of twofold, right? There was a lot of uncertainty last spring about was Congress going to pass a budget? How closely was it going to resemble the president's budget, which had pretty significant reductions to funding available to states, and whether or not, how or when or what the federal government was going to do. Like, I think it would just, nobody know. I mean, we still don't really know what is coming next. There's another continuing resolution that they have to do in January, right, to keep the government funded. So I think that funding was set aside both if possible, if there was I think at the time there was a possibility the General Assembly was going to have to come back in the fall, depending on what the federal government decided. setting those two pots of funds aside would have given the General Assembly resources if needed to quickly, that could be deployed quickly in the event that whatever decisions were made at the federal government, the state was going to need to react to quickly. Since that didn't have to happen, that money is reserved for the purposes that were reserved. General Assembly has the authority to unreserve it, to change the language about what it could be used for, and to determine when and if the need arises to unreserve it and deploy it to, either in accordance with the language that exists or change the language and then deploy it in accordance with whatever the new language is around what it's reserved for. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get an idea of how, I get an idea of what the playing field is. This sounds like it's the bullpen if we want to keep using baseball as a, it's just out there to be used if necessary. I just want to get a better
And
understanding.
it wasn't given to the administration to use, it was specific. So if you're looking in the budget, I did find it, it's pages 108 and 109 of the big bill that was as passed of the 290-page bill.
That's really scary, Robin.
It's under 300 pages. I thought we did pretty well.
No, the fact that you knew where to look for.
I had to look for it. No, I didn't have that memorized. I was looking while you were talking. I found it. I know, that would be very scary. I get it. Wrap me up to here.
Should have said.
The governor, in his budget presentation that he brings to you in January, may have recommendations for what to do with that money, right? The recommendation may
That's
be.
my question. Those two pots of 30 money, whatever they are,
30.
30 million are still sitting there. They exist. And either he can suggest that we use them and put them into his budget and do something with it, or we can suggest that we do something. with
Well,
it.
and we also, the 50 million, we used 6.5 million approximately.
So there's
SNAP.
that left.
So we still have 43.5 million, 43.5 million for that.
But we still have to change the language. If we did nothing in
Right.
terms of determining, if we wanted to keep this emergency fund, we still would have to change the language correctly. I mean, we've run across that with the BAA conversation of
Yeah,
where the language didn't fit the desired uses of the money.
that's right. Because it's been appropriated.
Right.
This money has been appropriated
For this
specifically.
purpose. period.
Yes, so if it's going to be reappropriated, it would probably have to be reverted and then reallocated.
We could figure out how we wanted to do it, like.
Right, but I mean,
That's
that's.
Brady's job, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Brady's here.
We can figure, we can write language that we can either revert it and reappropriate it. We can either tweak the language that says shall carry forward and not be reverted pursuant to the language that allows.
I
the
think
Commissioner of
the
Finance
governor
to
may
revert it.
attempt in his budget to revert it and reappropriate.
Possibly,
Too,
yeah.
right? I mean, he has the ability to do that.
You can make a
So
that recommendation.
it's a big mystery right now, what's gonna happen with those pots of money. Wayne?
Bottom line was the money was set aside because it was a perceived risk coming from the federal government. That didn't come to fruition, only with a little bit of the SNAP money there. Question then will be, does the risk still exist going into the next year?
I don't know, 1,000 people getting their federal housing benefits cut, so I'd say, yeah, sure.
Another 20 to 30,000 losing their health insurance premium subsidy. That sounds like a risk.
So we need to be frugal.
Pardon?
So we need to be frugal and
And there's money there. Somebody wanted to direct it toward those problems.
So here's the thing on the healthcare. I was actually talking to Nolan about this morning, and we can't just backfill the health premiums because everything that the state does is based on the information that the feds have, and all we do is add 1.5% or something to do the premiums. I'm not going to say this very eloquently, but we do what we do with the premium tax credits because the federal government basically does all the work. And if we wanted to backfill or take care of it, we would have to stand up a brand new program with no information on Vermonters and what they're doing and what they're paying, because the state doesn't get that information now. So we would have IT, we would have to get whatever the information was and create the guidelines and all of that stuff to just backfill. So it isn't a we can just backfill, which is what I had been operating through that. Yes, Dave.
But there's the federal tax subsidy program, which, as you point out, it's almost impossible, you can't backfill.
Right.
But there's also a Vermont premium tax assistance program. Could somebody, assuming there's a system in place that allocates that now, could somebody just increase that amount and in so doing address the loss in federal funds?
Apparently not, according to Nolan. So I'm sorry he's not here to answer this better than I can tell you. That is, I think, where we were all heading, and then Nolan stopped me this morning and said,
Can't be done.
not really, can't be done.
Did he have a number of how many Vermont families will be affected?
I think did we think it was there's 65 million, and then there's how many thousands of households? 30 some, 30.
I remember from a couple of months ago was, the threat was to 30,000, but I don't know. if that's-
Yeah, I think it was households, so I don't know how many people.
Well, what do we call households when we're dealing with people who are experiencing homelessness? A household is,
Well, it could be anywhere from 1 to 6, or, we don't know. So when we say households, that's a lower number than the number of people that are affected.
so I mean, it struck me as when the commissioner responded to my question yesterday about this was that they're not doing any homework who's affected. That the administration has punted on until we find out exactly what's going on. And the Speaker of the House in Washington announced yesterday that they're not taking this up before the end of the
Right.
year. So we know that, and even if they did, people are screwed for 2026 anyway.
Right.
So I think that's a lot to go on in order to be prepared for what's going to be incredible chaos for 10% of our
Right.
population. So I just think it's really callous to not plan for it.
So, DEVA would be the ones that would have that information. We didn't talk about that yesterday. But we can also, did we get some of this information at a joint fiscal committee? Didn't we talk about that? Emily, do you remember? Does anybody remember if we talked about it at a JFC?
I think
I can look.
James and Nolan.
Yeah, we'll get you guys on the case to get us some more information. And even if you just can email it out to us, that would be great. Anyway, so that's what I learned about that this morning, Dave. It was not. Okay. Continue. I've interrupted you.
No, I think on BAA, what I've been able to digest in the last 24 hours, that's all I got.
It just,
Oh, I'm getting some. Tiff, do you want to join us? Even without your camera on? Is Tiff there? Is she online?
Yeah, I'm online.
Okay, you don't have to, if you don't want your video, that's fine, but tell us what you were just sending me a text about.
Oh, well, I just something flashed on my phone that said that four House Republicans, in Congress bucked the party to advance a vote on the subsidies. So that may affect the situation.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
Brought to you by Tiff.
Is she in Washington?
Go down there and knock on the door.
Live from Washington.
Well, that's,
Who knows?
yeah, that'll force the vote. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
So we'll keep an eye on that. Thank you, Tiff.
sure. And the only reason that my screen is off is I keep on having to blow my nose, and you don't need to see that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, yep, my pleasure. Okay,
All right, well, ask away if you've got any more questions.
okay, will do. Definitely will do. I know the DCF is coming in, so.
Yes, I'll be in this afternoon.
Yeah, okay.
All right, great. Where are we now, Emily?
We can jump to Jump to the budget workshop.
Budget letter, okay.
Or the letter, either one. Oh, before I get, while I pull up my notes. One thing, because I know he was formally introduced to you over email, but you all know James. He's your go-to during the session. He'll be here with you through the whole thing. Well, I'm running around with my hair on fire as normal, but like.
Oh.
The one thing I would plug is, because this came up yesterday, and we were talking about it afterward. And because it happens with all legislators, not just House of Probes, but sometimes questions get asked and then departments will reply directly to you all. And we then don't know the answer to the question. And then we either have to ask it again. So if,
Go through you.
well, you don't have to go through us, but if you could copy us or forward us, if you get answers to things, that way we're not asking twice or not. That way when you get an answer and you're like, oh, then we can.
Right, everybody knows.
Everybody knows.
It's a lot more efficient
So
that
that's
way.
my shameless plug for if you could keep us in the loop, great, and there are questions you need to ask departments that we don't need to know about, so you don't have to copy us on those, but if you think of it, you could forward it to.
And feel free to
James,
remind us as necessary.
Sure.
All of you.
It will just help us help you. That, just put it, yeah, James is your go-to, he's wonderful. It's gonna
So
be
we do have a copy of the letter,
the letter, yes, and I can start with the letter.
and it's also on our website, the committee page.
Yes, and I want to be, I'm done in 5 minutes, so I'm gonna go fast.
That's okay.
And we can talk about it more, but you all have the memo that the Rep. Shy and Senator Perchlik we sent to agencies and departments on their behalf.
I don't think this is it.
10/24.
They give me the wrong memo.
This is one from
This is not the right one.
January 30, 2025.
What we need is the
Oh, the new one. I
the one
may,
that sent, this is the wrong one.
When they sent Robin.
I may have given Autumn the wrong one to.
I have a 1023.
Yeah, no, that's not it. So if you go to our committee page,
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on the website, or I'm gonna put it, I think we put, Brady, we put it on.
no, but the one that got printed isn't the right. Oh, let's see. It should be dated, I don't know why it's dated, no, then that's the wrong one too, not January 30th, 2025.
Yeah.
Should be
that's what's-
dated, maybe we posted the wrong.
October.
That's the wrong one.
I looked at it yesterday.
October.
The right one. It's under FY 2027.
Yeah.
Permanent legislative budget testimony. 10/23/2025. I'm gonna share it.
Yeah, that's what's on the webpage.
No, that's,
One that's on the
Well,
webpage is last year.
I guess so. Okay, I guess that's the right one. Thought we had more. This is signed by Andy, it's Justice. We did it more generically.
Yeah, you didn't officially sign this one.
Okay, that's why I'm throwing out.
It is different.
Yeah, okay. Oh, so the one on the web committee page is FY 26 budget instructions.
Right.
So maybe we can change that
I'm sorry.
and put the FY 27 budget instructions there instead of the 26 on the front page of our committee, on the website. Yeah, that'd be great.
We'll make sure it's in all the right places. But here it is up on the screen. So this is the letter that was shared with agencies and departments in October. We sent it after they were supposed to submit their budgets to finance and management so as not to add to their the plates, because it's not, depending on I think it's important for this just to sort of like level set around what to expect on what to get from agencies and departments. I think they're all starting in different places. Some of them already do a lot of the things that are asked in this memo. So it's not gonna be it won't be a big lift. Other agencies and departments, this may be a multi-year evolution of budgetary submissions, right? They've got 900 other things going on. So they've got to spend some time on it, hopefully giving them, directions back at the end of October, gave them a few extra months to think about it and to, just consider what's being asked of them and what they have available and what they can put forward. But we've had some conversations with some agencies and departments about what the request is, what sort of works. And we'll probably have some more conversations with people as we get closer to their presentations, but generally, the request is to just provide more information when they come in with their budgets and not just, walk through the ups and downs. The ups and downs have a purpose. They're helpful for certain things, but there's also sort of a piece that's missing from the ups and downs presentation. Some agencies, departments put together like a book that when I was a business manager, the sort of goal was that if I got a question from a legislator, I could say, have you read page 37 of the budget book? And then once they read page 30, right, that all that information was available in public and could be looked at. Some agencies, departments put together really helpful, comprehensive PowerPoints that have a lot of information in it, right? And same deal. Go check out slide 5. And if you have further questions, let's talk about it. But the goal is to sort of have more of that information available to you all and to those policy committees when budgets are reviewed.
So you gave examples of each of those where the here and here and the links were, because I just checked them out.
Okay, good.
too. So you can see, for example, the Agency of Education is one of the ones that has a really thorough budget book. Because Bill Talbot in the 1990s put together something and the agency was smart enough to continue to use that, right? So when you were there, that's what was being.
When I inherited that book, it made my job a lot easier.
Yeah. So I think we'll have a lot more agencies developing these things, which once they get that done, then they can just replicate it year after year.
But I think a lot of the sort of goal, and I don't want to speak to the goals that Chair Shy or Senator Pertwee had specifically because it's their memo, but and jump in, Rep. Shy if there's things, but just to give them more guidance on what to prepare and what would be more helpful for you all as you're making each decision. One example we talked about is, $1 million change in $100 million budget really doesn't make that big of a deal, right? But if you don't know that it's $100 million, that the underlying program is $100 million, you can spend a whole lot of time talking about that $1 million, even though it's really just sort of moving around the edges. Whereas if it's a $500,000 program with $1 million change, that's a pretty significant change. And that's a different conversation, right? So trying to figure out a way to have them, we'll see those changes, the incremental changes, but also presenting it in a way that says like, okay, so contextually, this is this, right? Like, I'll give an example of something that happened yesterday, and it will probably happen more this afternoon, right? But AHS has that reallocation of ADS costs to every department.
Right.
If you walk through the ups and downs, then it's hard not to have that conversation 7 separate times when the secretary is here and then every single department. But that's, it's technical. Once you talk about it once, you need to talk about it again. You should really, you want to spend time on the, what's going on with Medicaid caseload and, wires, what's the $14 million or the $30 million change there, right?
Because that was just a reallocation, so that we didn't need to talk about it, but the Medicaid
shows
is
up
kind of
every time.
important.
It shows up every time.
Right, so, but we have to remember that it was based on one thing and we don't need to keep bringing it up all the time.
So hopefully, right, through their presentations, that will they can give you here's all the technical stuff that you should ask us questions about, but you're going to see repeated. The internal service fund changes, right? You're going to see that every agency and department. Sometimes there are nuances with internal service fund changes that you want to talk about, and sometimes it's just sort of normal course of business. But you always see it on the ups and downs, right?
And that's why the ups and downs are so unhelpful. I mean, this is why we have things under here like prior year accomplishments. If we're paying money for programs, we want to know how they're going, right? That's what we want to talk about, not whether it's, $30,000 in interdepartmental transfers or IT allocation. There's an accountability piece that we're trying to get to. And especially as our budgets are going to get harder, they and we are going to have to make decisions on, do we continue these programs? Right? And is it worth spending our money on? We never take things off the plate. We just seem to add things. So let's change that in a good way. Yeah.
So I'm not going to go, you can all read it. I'm not going to walk through more of the specifics because we're short on time, but this was what was sent out to folks and what, yeah. But hopefully you'll see some progress related to these items in budget documents this year.
Right.
And it's been posted along the sidebar.
Oh, good. It's updated for 2027. Thank you, Autumn. So everybody can see that. When this was sent out, Emily offered herself a joint fiscal office up to help the agencies, so some may be fine and some may be freaking out or whatever, but we didn't just dump it on them and say, good luck in the future. So, we've got JFO that's willing to help out, which is, I'm appreciative of that. Hopefully they are too. And so we'll just, we'll see what happens if somebody comes in with just the ups and downs like they've normally done. I'm going to ask them to stop and come back in a week with a revised presentation. So that's the plan. And hopefully we won't have to do that because we're trying to give people a lot of time, a lot more time than we usually do. We've asked a few of the departments as they've come in, yesterday. That's why I was asking the question. I want to be sure that they were aware of the letter and we're, remembering that they need to do something about that. So we're gonna have to stick together on making sure we get the information that we want to get and recognize that, yes, for some of these folks, it's going to be a multi-year process, but that doesn't mean they do nothing this year.
I think the advice that we've given to some of the entities that have reached out that have bigger budgets is just, do the big programs first, right? Get the detail on the big stuff.
Right.
Get down to the small grant programs and that stuff in out years, but.
I think having examples of successful books, it's not like we're just saying create out of whole cloth. There's ways to do it that are pretty clear. So, yeah, Wayne?
If a good model is built with all the changing staff through time, it's going to make it really easy for new people to come in and have good presentation.
That's right. And that's what works. That's what's worked with AOE. Because Emily was in long after Bill Talbot was there.
Yeah, I did a little bit, but I didn't really have to do anything.
Yeah, and you can make tweaks as it makes sense, but you have the foundation for doing a good project. Yeah, Dave, do you have a?
No.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, I really like the point here that you've made about the accountability measures. Because I think that's really important for us to figure out priorities. If we're gonna have to spend our money differently than we have before, we gotta know what's working and what's not.
That's right.
And for a while, this committee had a focus of what was called results-based accountability, remember? And we had each agency, when they came in with their budget, with, the top 3 programs they had, and how they were working and how they weren't working, and how, they either need more money or maybe they need to do something different. So I think that's really.
Yeah, it really is. And we're post-pandemic now, so nobody's swimming in money.
It's no emergencies either. Well,
Right,
there are
well,
emergencies, but
right.
it's not.
So
Like
part of this is that this should help all of us ask better questions. I mean, even better questions. It's not that we haven't asked good questions, but with these focuses, and this all went out to the committee chairs. I've talked to the committee chairs. I'll keep talking to the committee chairs. And they are also, I've asked them to, make sure that their committees are asking these kinds of questions too. So that we're more unified in our approach and how to do those things. So,
Do you want me to talk about budget workshops or?
yes,
Okay.
that's right. We're going to be a couple of minutes. You're welcome to listen in, folks.
Do this quickly. So historically, JFO has done like tax workshops at the beginning of the legislative session where talk about different types of taxes, and at lunchtime, kind of like a brown bag thing. We, Rep. Shai and Senator Perchlik have asked us to think through budget workshops, sort of in the same vein. What we're considering, we're going to do 2 separate budget workshops. I think what we're going to do is have folks sign up for it so we can gauge interest. And then if we have more interest, then spots available, we'll run them again. But the 2 separate workshops, the first one will be generally about budgeting and about the budget. So the budget timeline, how budgets are put together, how their prioritization of, are there a reflection of your priorities, how you have to work with limited resources, and kind of do a fun budget exercise and have people break into small groups and think through okay, you only have X number of dollars and you have all of these needs. What are you going to buy? The work that you all have to go through that your colleagues benefit from your hard work on. But to sort of put people through that on a much smaller scale. The second one is going to be about the bill itself. So how to read the big bill, what sections of the big bill are, where to find the contingency list, where to find the prior year appropriations, those sorts of things. We'll go through the website, help people sort of navigate to think that the bill, relates back to certain spreadsheets in the web report. I know you all get a lot of questions on how to find things, so hopefully this will give people a little bit of a map.
This is where I want to do a scavenger hunt.
And
Get in a team,
Wins at the
find
end.
these things. Where's the contingency list, right? I had to go look it up. Where's the whatever and take last year's budget with prizes involved, of course.
Right.
Don't care.
So
Yeah.
that's, look for more information about that in early January.
Which we really appreciate all of your help, and I know Grady's involved, and I'm sure James is involved.
Yeah, I haven't done any work at this point. James, Grady, and Amy should get all the credit.
Okay.
They're putting it all together.
You've been off since June?
Huh?
You've been off since?
Yeah, I've just been hanging, I've just been delegating with my feet on my desk.
One last thing while we have you, and you and I talked a little bit this morning. At the very end of Adam's presentation yesterday, he talked a little bit about the childcare process and the tax thing. And I don't know about you, but I was kind of fried at that point, so I didn't really understand it. And can you just take 30 seconds and explain?
Sure, it's really a technical update. We can come in and dig into it in more detail, but currently the way that the payroll tax is collected is it's withheld and remitted to the tax department along with income tax withholding. And the tax department reconciles the income tax withholding versus the payroll tax quarterly. But they have to wait until they sort of wait for that quarterly process. What we ran, this was the first year because the payroll tax was new, is that on June 30th, that reconciliation process hadn't occurred, like needs time to happen. But we wanted to close the books on the general fund, but we didn't know of the money in the general fund, how much was payroll tax money that needed to go to the special fund and how much was general fund. So what we did is we internally came up with a consensus process between tax finance and JFO to determine like how much should we assume is payroll tax versus not payroll tax, close the general fund, and then that gets reconciled after the fact. What makes, as I'm sure you know, it makes accountants nervous is not having specific instructions on how to manage that sort of process. So what that language does is really lay out for finance and management, when they go to close the books, they account, like they have a stepwise process on how to make sure that the right money ends up in the right buckets and have a timely close of the general fund. So we can walk through it in more specific. That's generally what it is. It's just making sure that we have a process.
So this tax money doesn't flow into a specific fund other than its own specific fund. It goes into it, it has to be resolved. So as it comes in, as the money comes in, does it get deposited into a specific fund or just it's all lumped into the general fund?
It all goes into the general fund right now and then gets reconciled out.
We have special funds that work a different way, right? Is there any thinking, is this a common practice for a lot of funds to have them flow in that way?
No, and this is specifically the way that the tax is administered to make it, I think and this may be a good question for the tax mark, but to make it simpler for employers when they're remitting payroll withholding and the payroll tax, they remit it as one amount.
My question should be should we consider making this a special fund so that
There is a special fund.
The issue is the bifurcation of the
process?
the amount that comes in from employers is both. And it's not specifically, the tax department has to reconcile how much of this is withholding and how much of it is payroll tax after the fact. All the money ends up in the right place, but it takes time to do it based on how the money's sent to the state.
So we're sending one check, not two.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that the way to think about it? Yeah.
Whereas the other special funds, they're special taxes or special permits or things
It's
like
easy to
that.
just do
And they
it.
go directly.
Right.
So, right.
Seems messy.
It is, and that's why.
That's why we're trying to guide the process, yeah. And once we have a history under our belts, it'll be a little bit.
Yes, when there's, the figuring out how to bifurcate the two will get easier over time.
All right, thank you very much. Emily,
no
that was
problem.
a smattering of lots of important things, and we'll be continuing to ask you questions.
See you in
So we have
January.
Criminal Justice Council, who I think is all online, and we appreciate you all your patience while we work through a couple of other things, so. We have Christopher Brickell, Lindsay, whose last name I'm gonna massacre, Fidesz. I have one of those names to forget, and Jason Starr. So if you want to introduce yourselves for the record, and we will get started on your presentation. Thank you.
Well, good morning, and thank you, committee members. For the record, my name is Christopher Brickell. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Criminal Justice Council. And I have with me today, Director of Administration, Lindsay Tverge. So you were very close on the last name. And as you all know, Jason Pinard, who is our budget analyst. And moving forward, I think this is a fairly brief and straightforward, but we're happy to answer any questions that you do have. So we won't keep you from your lunch. And I don't see Representative Harrison. Is he not with the committee today?
No, you know, he's retiring. He's leaving so he was here yesterday through lunchtime, so we can say our goodbyes, and he's home packing. And Marty Feltis, Representative Feltis, is here as she is going to be our new vice chair, and she's going to have his portfolio. So,
well, thank you. We did get that. I did get that information from Representative Harrison. I just wanted to wish him well, but I didn't see him, and the room was too small for me to be able to tell from my end.
No, he's not here, but we'll pass along your good wishes.
Okay, thank you. So yes, our acts and resolves language that we submitted was fairly straightforward, moving from our request of 1.2 that was allocated to 1.5 for the 3 years of financial support for our 3-phase accreditation process that we had requested. And while the explanation is there, I just feel like we need to give you the little bit, or I need to give you a little bit of history that went behind this. Was in our initial FY24 budget ask for the redo of our curriculum, redevelopment of the curriculum to make sure that it was legally defensible and that it met best practices for law enforcement training moving forward in the process. And that budget ask was supported by the governor and the legislature. Our budget ask was initially 1.4. But when the money came out, we actually received 1.2. So we were short initially there right off the bat. And then through the RFP process, this is a very specific type of process that requires very specific type of curriculum development. There are very few companies, if more than one, that exist that actually do this. We did contract with IADLIST, who is the International Association of Directors of Law Enforcement Standards and Training. They do national work on curriculum development and writing, as well as internationally as well. When we did the RFP contracting with them, initially the pricing that we got was 1.8 million. That did actually include some staffing, and we cut back every place that we could to keep the bare bones ask of what it was that we were asking to do, which was the actual curriculum rewrite and make our training defensible, the most key portions of that. And that was settled on a contract of 1.5 million. Over the last 2 budget cycles, I have asked for the discrepancy of the 300,000 in one-time funding each year. Each year it's been denied, and we understand the rationale and the reasons why. So I'm really at the last thread of ask at this point through the Budget Adjustment Act to try to make this gap of the $300,000 so that we can actually complete the project, which is about, I'd estimate it's well over halfway. I'm thinking closer to 2/3 of the way done, but we're getting fantastic work from this company, and it's a project that will ensure us for a lot of years to come, and making sure that we're starting out with defensible training and making sure that our curriculum is supported by best practices so far. So the only other slide that we submitted was just the budget adjustment in the line so that you could see where it was placed. But that's fairly it. It's very straightforward, but I'm happy to answer any questions around that that you have or anything else for that matter.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Marty.
Well,
Yours now.
My question is, you indicate that you're halfway through the project. You've started it obviously a couple of years ago. So you anticipate being through during the calendar year 26 or running into 27 a little bit?
We do not. We anticipate mid-year 2027 that we'll actually be piloting. It comes to us in segments, so each topic has the curriculum done. It then gets sent to subject matter experts for their review, and then a curriculum advisory group has to weigh in on it. So it goes back and forth a couple of times. We make sure that it's relatable and Vermont specific to what Vermonters expect for law enforcement training in Vermont. And each topic that gets done, then we get it completed, and then we have it go out to the current instructor cadre that we have. So we're going to, through this process, find that there may be some instructors that aren't comfortable with the brand new curriculum that they're going to be developing, because most curriculum has been developed by the instructors themselves over the course of years. So this is going to be a different process for many, but it's very, very thorough and complete, and I'm happy with the results that we're getting. But because of that piecemeal type of back and forth, we've got over half the curriculum done and on hand that we have here. But the process lays out where they will come from IATLS and actually review us piloting that in front of academy classes so that they get a review of our delivery of that content.
Great, thank you.
Great. Any other questions for anybody? Seems pretty clear. Glad it's going well. We'll look forward to hearing more as it progresses.
We'll be happy to provide more.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So committee.
For your time.
Okay. We'll see you next year.
Thank you very much.
So committee, we're done a little early, so you're going to get on for a full hour for lunch. And then we're going to meet back here with corrections promptly at 12:45. Anybody who wants to go offline?